All right, I went ahead and applied some paint off camera. I figured there wasn't really any point in me showing this piece unpainted and saying, no, I will paint it, and then showing it painted. I'm just showing it painted. What it was a mix of some XF59 from Tamiya, and then I added in some XF57 and just a little bit of XF3 flat yellow to brighten it up. It's not much different from this. I think I took it so that it's a little less red and a little more towards yellow. It's not drastically different. I think I would have been fine if I would have just gone with this, or maybe even this XF60. Either one would have worked, because I'm not really too worried. I just want it to be brown or tan, kind of a tannish color. So I painted that on fully. I didn't try and do any pre-shading, leaving anything poking through. I just gave the whole thing a coat of that color as the basis for everything else that's going to come after it. Now, I masked off the interior, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen this. But for the interior, I used this AK Interactive Russian Cockpit Turquoise. See? Turquoise. It's not turquoise, it's turquoise. I guess the spell checker at the AK factory had taken the day off. But that's for the interior. I just thought it would be a cool interior. So I've got that on there. What I'm going to be doing in this video is trying to get the interior painted, and if I can, in the time that I'm allotting for this video, get the pilot's face, his face, get his face fully painted, get his face fully painted. I can't talk. It's very early in the morning. So anyway, that's what this video is going to focus on. I'm going to start off painting this this padding here inside the cockpit with a mix of 4 parts Vallejo leather brown and 1 part black gray. I want a very, very dark base that's just a desaturated brown for this. And this is going to have to go on in multiple coats. I've thinned it down with water. I want it to be fairly smooth, so I've thinned it down with water. So the first coat is not going to give great coverage. But I'll get all of this leather padding painted around the interior here, making sure not to paint over any of the turquoise. And then I'll also get this padding here on the headrest, right up there on the top, painted up. Now, if you watched the video that I did sometime either earlier this year, or it may have been last year, building Citadel's Warhammer 40K Impulsor, you'll remember that it had some leather seats in the back, and I painted those in sort of a glazing method. I'm going to be using that same method here. It's a little more complicated because you're having to bring the glazing from the bottom up, but careful work will reward me. Now, what I'm doing is I'm starting with just the pure leather brown now. I'm not using that darker mixture that I had earlier. And what I've done is I've thinned this fairly heavily with water and Lamian medium. Now, the reason I'm using some Lamian medium is well, and you can see, here, I'll paint some on my thumbnail. You can see how thin that is. There's color there. It's more than a glaze, but it's still very thin. And the reason I'm doing that is the Lamian medium will help spread the pigments out, but won't break them up. But all I'm going to do is just start here at the bottom. And I'm not going to go right up to the edge. I'm going to leave that the darker color. But I'm just going to bring that up almost from the bottom all the way up to the top, like that. And if it leaves it a little rough and textury, that's fine. That's what I want. All right, I've done 3 rounds, I guess you'd say, of that glazing using just the leather brown. And what I look for is, in bringing the color up from the bottom to the top, each time I progressively start a little higher up. When the higher up parts reach full opacity, meaning that I'm seeing up here pure leather brown, I'm no longer seeing the undercoat, that lets me know it's time to add a little bit of a lighter color to the leather brown, and then start again from the next place up, bringing it up, and just keep doing that. Now what I'll do is I'll add just a little bit of, I think I'm going to use just a little bit of Iraqi sand to add to that the leather brown just to make it a little brighter and start doing the same process, glazing on coats of that color and bringing it up towards the top. All right, I finished that glazing process along here. Looking at it now, I think I overglazed it a bit, but I'll live with it. Now what I'm going to do next is I want to make some areas look like the leather's been distressed a little bit. So I'm going to use some just straight Iraqi sand thinned with water to essentially just go in here and provide some chipping like that. And, you know, to look like where the leather's been distressed and worn down a little bit, things like that. I only got that one section done, but I really need to get up close to really see this. I can't see what I'm doing really well from shooting it from behind the camera. So I'm going to do this one section and then film the next step on this section and then do the rest off camera. But once I get that color on there, I'm just going to take some Agrax Earthshade right out of the bottle. And I'm just going to paint it fully over this whole section. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of darken it down a bit, because I thought it got a little too light. It's just going to darken it down, and it's going to kind of blend in the transitions and going to darken down those chips, blend them in, not chips, but the stressing on the leather. Just kind of blend that in. But I'll put that on there, and then I may go back later and put a second coat on, depending on how that dries. I'll just do the rest of this around there and see how it looks, and if I can live with it, hopefully I won't have to repaint it. Alright, I finally got it to the that'll do pig stage. If you've ever seen the movie Babe, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I did that chipping type thing and put the Agrax Earthshade glaze over it, but I was looking at it and I thought I'm still not happy with it. And I was actually about to the point that I was just going to paint over and start again and refilm the whole thing, and you'd have never seen this footage, so for whatever that's worth. But I thought it just needs more texture. I liked the colors, I liked where it was going, but I just thought, you know, it needs more texture. So I grabbed this small dry brush, and just using that Iraqi sand, I just kind of dry brushed right along the edge there, and then just some up on the surface itself, just to provide a little more texture, a little more scuffing. And then I put a couple of more coats of Agrax Earthshade on it. One a full coat all the way up, and then another one that went from the bottom about 3/4 up, and then actually a third one that went from the bottom about halfway up, just to reestablish a little of that gradient. Hit it with the hairdryer, and I thought, okay, I can live with that. It's not as dramatic as I'd wanted it to be. I wanted the gradient to be a little smoother, a little more of a transition to go from dark to bright. But I figure at some point in any model, you hit the stage where you go, okay, I just got to move on. So when I got to the that'll do stage, that'll do pig, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And I need to do some detail painting. I'm going to start off painting these things that look like hatch seals with Life Color Rust Light Shadow 1 for the initial coat. Now I'll use Citadel's Fire Dragon Bright to paint just along the top edge of this to give it a bit of a highlight look. I mixed some Vallejo Gold Yellow from their Game Color range with the Citadel Fire Dragon Bright. And what I'm going to do is just paint just the barest stripe, if I can, right along the top edge. Anything that I'm imagining to be some kind of glowy screen, I'm going to base it in Citadel Storm Host Silver. I'm going to paint a few other details in Vallejo German Gray. I'm going to use a Citadel contrast paint called Warp Lightning to paint those areas that I painted Storm Host Silver, just to give them a little bit of a glow effect. I've mixed up roughly equal parts of Vallejo Blue Green and Cold White, and I'm going to use this to just start painting in some very surface level scratches and basically chipping around on the turquoise. This will also serve as kind of a subtle edge highlight. Sometimes if I want detail to stand out rather than doing a traditional edge highlight, I find that if I just put some chipping along the edge of it, even if I run it mostly around the edge, as long as it looks like chipping, it serves both purposes very well. I'll use this German camo black-brown to do the darker chips. I'll put these inside the previously painted chips, and these just represent scuffs and scratches that have gone down to the underlying surface material, so they're a little deeper. You don't have to completely fill the scuff in every area. You can just partially do it. But the idea is just to give kind of a semblance of various depths of chips. And now I'm going to use some Agrax Earthshade Thin Down with Lamy and Medium to just stipple on some stains. And the way I'll do this is I'll put some of the color on there, and while it's still wet, I'll clean my brush off so it's dry and just kind of move that around to thin it down even further. The idea here is just to, represent dirt, grime, coffee stains, whatever. Just some kind of discoloration. I thinned down some MIG Productions Dark Wash with some odorless thinner, and I'm just going to put this on here to enhance the panel lines. This was a last step so that I have all the acrylics down. They dried up real quickly, and now I can put this down, and I don't have to worry about the drying time because I'm not going to be putting anything else on this for a while. Made a minor modification to this part that holds the hatch on. This was plastic and was really flimsy, so I trimmed off the plastic part, cut it off, smoothed it off, and I drilled a hole into this, and then all the way through this part, all the way through to the other side. This is a piece of brass wire, very stiff. I super glued it into this side and then stuck it into the hole so that there was some excess protruding out that way. When I got it set to the distance I wanted between here and here, I put some super glue on here, some on that side, let that dry, cleaned it up with debonder, clipped off the excess, sanded it smooth with a file, and then I stuck on that little disc that I punched out with my punch and die set just to cover up that hole. And then I'll go back later and repaint this. I just wanted to show it before I painted it so it'd be easier to talk about the changes I made. But now that thing, it ain't going nowhere. I think that'll do it for this episode. I've got the interior painted. The only thing I have left to do is just to clean up some of that enamel wash. I'm still letting that dry. I literally just put that on. I'm filming this in a pretty quick fashion this morning, so I'll clean that up, but that'll just be some odorless thinner and a brush, easy to do. In the next video, I'll be painting the pilot's face. I've already started doing that, so I'm a little ahead on that. And then once that's done, I can get to the exterior of the suit and start painting and weathering it, which is really where the fun really is. So I'm looking forward to that. This is a supporter exclusive video. Thank you so much for the support you provide for me and for my family. We're grateful for it. It is a blessing. So thank you very much. And I guess I'll just close out by saying, in this hobby, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.